Hey guys, welcome back to Jessin Reads Romance. I'm Jessin, and today I'm going to be going over all the books that I read for the first week of June. Now, this was like a very special week because toward the end of it, we had the Mafia Romance Readathon, so I read a ton of books this past weekend that were exclusively Mafia. So I'm excited to rehash all of that because like it just happened. I binged a ton of books like within a couple days. So anyway, let's start off because I had a couple of books that I did for a vlog, and the first clip that I did for The Widow of Rose House by Diana Biller, it got deleted. I deleted it. I did that. So it's totally my fault. And it was the first clip where I was talking about just diving into it and discovering the characters, getting a feel for them and stuff. So I gotta do the weekly wrap-ups because now I can say what I said. The Widow of Rose House is a very unique historical romance. It kind of has some vibes of The Haunting of Hill House, the Netflix TV series, and I really like The Haunting of Hill House, and it's not scary. Like, this isn't, like, I wouldn't consider it like a dark kind of gothic-y feel romance. It does have gothic elements to it, but I just really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the hero and the heroine's dynamic and the story. So Alva is this notorious widow. She's been living on the continent for the majority of her marriage, and she actually comes from a family who were nouveau riche, and they wanted her to marry into a prominent family. And as a lot of these marriages go, the daughter has a huge dowry. She marries a man who, his family doesn't have any more money, but they have that name, the prestige, and that's how she married her first husband, Elaine. They did not have a good relationship at all. They had a horrible marriage, and Alva definitely has some scars from that marriage, like emotional scars from the marriage, when she returns back to New York after her husband's death. Now, her husband died in Monaco after he was gambling in this casino, and somebody robbed him and killed him. We can see that his death still weighs heavy on Alva, and the way that she wants to escape everything that she experienced with him follows her back to New York. And while she's at a restaurant pitching her idea for this basically home interior design book to this, I think he was an editor. And part of the appeal of signing Alva on for this book is because she's so notorious. Her husband basically slandered her name towards the end of her marriage, and the editor signs her on because it's like, yeah, we're definitely going to say it's Mrs. Webster's Guide to Home Interior, but she wants to disassociate herself from that name, but it's also what keeps the bills paid, so she's forced to kind of do this. At the same time in this restaurant, our hero, Sam, is having a meeting, and he's with his friend, his best friend, and also lawyer, Henry, and they're having a meeting because they have investors. His whole family is like famous for like inventing stuff. I think his brother is a doctor, and he's gonna get a book, the second book. It's not like a series, but he will be getting a book. But his parents are famous inventors, the Moores. Their name is pretty prominent, and a lot of people want to invest in their inventions and get the Moores to support whatever they want invented or whatever. And I love Sam's character because he's oblivious a lot of the times. Like at this dinner, he starts drawing on a napkin because he has an idea, and he kind of tunes out the rest of the world. But when he sees Alva, he just looks at her and he just like, she is stunning. Who is she? And when his friend Henry is just like, oh yeah, that's the widow who recently bought Leafta House, which is this house which has been abandoned for so many years because there's rumors that it's haunted by ghosts. And Sam is fascinated by ghost stories, and this is pretty interesting to him because this is a more recent ghost story. It's happened within the last 50 years, and usually the origin of those stories happened like hundreds of years ago. And so he wants to get into this house and like monitor the electromagnetic activity and stuff like that, and he has to convince Alva to let him. But Alva is adamant that ghosts don't exist, and she has her own hangups about why she doesn't want this house to be haunted and stuff. And I just love it because Sam is such like, he's such an adorable character because Alva is so closed off because of what happened with her husband, and Sam just adores her, and it's just beautiful. And I really love this romance a lot. I gave this book 5 stars. It'll probably go on the podcast somewhere where we need a historical romance because it was just so unique. And I'm definitely reading, there is a Christmas short that is about Sam's parents and how they met. You kind of get a glimpse of that in this book. And then the second book, oh, I forgot what the second book with Sam's brother, who's a doctor. He's getting a book later on this year, maybe in October, and his love interest is a prima ballerina in Paris. So I'm excited about that. Next, I read Strangelove by Anna Guire, and I did a vlog. Like I said, during my vlog for this one, I got to the part with the sex scenes and I couldn't stop giggling because it's such an unusual coupling. It's not your typical alien romance, if alien romance could be typical at all, but the premise of Strangelove is that there's an alien race and they have this kind of competition called the choosing, and our hero Zalar, he has lost out on the choosing. Nobody wants to choose him, and he's just very sad about that because he needs a nest mate. He wants a mate and he wants children and stuff, and so he decides to basically open up an account on like Alien Tender. He gets matched with this alien and he has to go travel to go get her and bring her back so that they can compete in the choosing, and like he has like one more shot at this. Well, his AI that controls the spaceship malfunctions and brings him to Earth, and Zalar has no idea that he's not even on the right planet, and he sees a human woman, doesn't know that she's human. He thinks that the planet has been destroyed because Earth is so disgusting, and so he's rescuing the human, Beryl, the heroine, and her dog, who he just considers another alien life form. Like, he has no idea that dogs are pets. He just thinks both of these are alien beings, and I must rescue them because we don't know if her town is going to be attacked again. And so he can't understand her. Earth is not on the map for the alien conglomerate planets that Zalar is a part of because they consider Earth to be a primitive planet with primitive beings. So he loads Beryl and her dog onto his ship and then sticks them with this like chip so that they can communicate. And the chip has limited translation abilities because there's just certain things that just don't translate well whenever you're speaking in another language. And it's very interesting the confusion that happens when she's explaining that Snaps is a dog, but like she basically has to cater to his needs, and that miscommunication happens, and Zalar thinks that, oh, so Snaps is the one who is like the more intelligent being or whatever. And it's just funny. So the dog gets to talk. Snaps has a voice and he is wonderful, and I love Snaps so much. He just makes it better. He makes this book just adorable. I just love it. I love all the interactions. So he takes Beryl back onto the planet. They get her approved, even though it's unusual, and she responds to the challenges in unusual ways because she's human. She doesn't know what's typical of these. Like, she makes an alliance very early on, and that's not typical because everyone's just kind of cutthroat and they want to be seen as the best so that they can make the best match and stuff. And it's such a wonderful romance. It was very like heartwarming and endearing and very cute, but I will say I only gave this book 4 stars because the sex scenes were a little weird. They aren't typical alien romances. He does not have the typical male anatomy, or should I say he doesn't have the typical male alien anatomy, which is just basically like a humanoid penis, but like with bells and whistles, like spirals or spikes or whatever. He doesn't have that. And yeah, I talk about the sex scenes in my vlog, so if you want to know about that, I'll link that video and you can go watch it because I don't want to talk about it again. Because it's just weird. It squicks me out a little bit. But I do want to read the second book in the series. I do. Then I read Whiteout by Adriana Anders, and this is a romantic suspense set in Antarctica. I picked this book up earlier in the year because I was going to do this vlog with The Widow of Rose House and Strangelove and Whiteout earlier because they're all books that I saw a lot of in 2020 and didn't get a chance to read. But I got about halfway through Whiteout and I just set it down and I never picked it back up again. It was just not on my radar. I was kind of bored. So I just decided I'm going to try out an audio this time and maybe that'll push me over the edge. Unfortunately, I was still bored even while listening to the audio, but the audio did help me push through till the very end. I don't know if it's this book in particular. I don't normally read romantic suspense. I can count on one hand how many romantic suspenses I've read, and I don't know if it's just the story didn't interest me and the characters kind of annoyed me toward the end, and I guess it wasn't as exciting as I wanted it to be. I don't know. It's totally like a personal hang-up type of thing. Angel is the summer chef in this Antarctica station, and soon she'll be leaving back to go to the US, and she kind of has a crush on this former, I think he was in the army, I can't remember. He's ex-military and he works at Antarctica. His name's Ford Cooper, and he has built these devices where he can get these ice core samples to study and stuff, and he's called the Iceman because he's a bit of a loner, and he likes to avoid Angel because he also thinks she's pretty hot, and he's just like, nothing good can come of this, I'm just gonna ignore it. But the problem is stuff starts to go down when everyone's leaving the station to go back to the US, Angel goes to this warehouse where they store extra food, and she gets kind of caught up in the middle of something really bad. She witnesses this guy being threatened by this really creepy dude named Samson. He always gave her the creeps, and he also murders the guy right in front of her face. So now she's stuck. She has missed her plane, and something nefarious is going on, and she knows too much. Luckily, she was able to escape him, and then Ford Cooper comes back and realizes what's going on, and he and Angel need to get these ice core samples that contain this virus that these bad guys want to use to make a bioweapon out of, and they need to get to another station. There's a South African station and a Russian station, and so they have to traverse like Antarctica wasteland in freezing, below freezing temperatures with very little supplies and only their body heat. So it sounds very exciting, but I just was not feeling it. Personally, I wasn't feeling it, and I felt like the beginning was pretty promising. I liked the first third of the book. It gets a little boring for me in the middle, but towards the end, I felt like their relationship kind of fell into some cliches. The bad guys felt a little cliche toward the end, and I wasn't satisfied. So I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read Link by Serena Ackroyd. This is the second book in her Dark and Dirty Sinners. It's her MC romance. I did not like the first one, Nyx. He was not my favorite character at all. He totally ruined that book for me. His behavior did. And I don't normally like MC romances, but I still want to continue because it really ties into her Mafia romance, which I love. So I picked up the second book, Link, and thank the Lord, I love this book. This one's so much better. The dynamic between the hero and the heroine is just a lot better for me because I think that Link is such a good guy. So in the first book, in Nyx, the heroine Julia was assaulted by this guy, and he's the son of this big wig in town. They have a lot of money to throw around. Julia ends up by stealing his phone, and they find out on his phone that he has kidnapped women. And so they're kind of in a race against the clock to find these women. So now that he's dead, they need to hurry up and find the women before they all die, if they're not already dead, these missing women that he has abused. The heroine, Lily, is that scumbag's sister. And she has suffered. She has been abused, and we find out which member of her family was abusing her later, and I won't spoil that for you because it's not revealed until the end, like what exactly is going on. You just know that she is being abused. And she decides that she is going to kind of team up with the MC because she knows her brother's secrets. She has found evidence or coordinates where she thinks that these women will be. And it's very difficult for her to contact the MC because her father has bodyguards put on her. And so she has to kind of outwit them in order to talk to the MC. And she ends up by contacting Link whenever she goes to a bar. And she straight up tells him, like, hey, I have the coordinates where I know where they are. So Link is forced to trust this girl who he knows nothing about, and he gives her his contact information, like, tell me what you know and we'll see if you're telling the truth. They do discover the girls, and they're able to rescue some of them. But the thing about it is, Link and Lily still stay in touch. So they have this texting conversation, and they become good friends. And so I love the romance because it's like so gradual. You can see them just like talking about everyday stuff. And Link is learning about her situation, how she despises her father, she despises her life, and she wants revenge because she's like, my family are just, they're not good people. My family is not good people, and I would love to get away. I would love to get away. And Link is encouraging her to get away, and he's falling for Lily. And it's just so wonderful. I love their romance so much. It was so much sweeter, and that's what I love to see. And like the disrespectful talk was at a very minimum because that's why I struggle with MC romance, with the language that they use in reference to women, and it was very minimal in this book. So it was like it was a more enjoyable experience to me as a whole. I really enjoyed this book, 4.5 stars. I can't wait to jump into the next book because I hope it's gonna have the same vibes as Link. As long as they don't touch Nyx's level of assholery, I think I'll like this series, this MC series. Next, I read Broken Miles by Claire Kingsley, and this is the first book in her Miles family series. And I purchased a couple of Claire Kingsley's books. I've read her in the past, but I just haven't picked up any of her more recent books. And recently her husband tragically and suddenly passed away. And so I bought a couple of her books to support her because her personal assistant did post that they didn't need anything, just if you wanted to buy her books, that would be great. So I bought a couple of her books. And this is a second chance romance between an ex-husband and wife. And in theory, I really like second chance romances. And second chance romances I have some that are my favorites of all time. Like Kennedy Ryan, I think, writes a good second chance romance. That's normally what her books are, or second chance romances. Grip. Anyway, so I was really excited to see like an actual couple who got divorced and then reconnected a couple years later. Roland is part of the Miles family, and he grew up, he was one of the oldest, but he didn't want to be involved in their winery, so they live in somewhere in Washington State. He and his girlfriend Zoe were college sweethearts, and they got married whenever they were 20, so they were pretty young. But Roland has had this drive to succeed in his career, and he's like a finance guy, and they moved to San Francisco, but their marriage kind of degraded because Roland became such a workaholic. And he had come home one day to see that her ring was on the table, and she's just saying like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be your second priority. This marriage is not working and I'm leaving. I want a divorce. So they'd been divorced for 4 years, but Zoe actually works for his family, works at the winery. So she's still very much involved in his family. Like, she has a good relationship with his mom and his siblings. And he doesn't often come back home because, like I said, he's such a workaholic. But the winery is in trouble. His brother Leo, who they don't even have a very great relationship, they're always butting heads because their dad is always like wanting Roland to come back and work at the winery, and Leo's frustrated because it's a lot of his responsibility. But they find out that their dad has been mismanaging this whole business, and it's about to be, and the winery is going downhill fast, and they need Roland's help. So he returns, and now all of a sudden he's in Zoe's proximity. And the feelings are still there, like he still loves Zoe, and Zoe is still attracted to Roland, but they still have some things to work out because she's just like, I didn't feel like it was a priority. I never saw you. You barely even noticed when I wasn't there. It just is not the type of marriage that I wanted. And so Roland has to come to terms with that. Like, he needs to find a work-life balance. I thought the romance was very adorable, and I really did like it. There was some heavy drama that was going on in this book. I wasn't expecting that, and some future romances that are set up. So I'm probably going to continue with this series because I want to see what happens. There's like a big bombshell that happens toward the end where I was like, oh my God. So very exciting. I give this book 4.5 stars. Very good. And now for my Mafia romance books. I read Ruthless Stranger by Maggie Cole. This is their first book in the Mafia War series. And this is unusual because the couple is older, and I liked it. So the heroine is 38. She has recently been divorced. She was married for 20 years. Her girlfriends decide to take her to Vegas to kind of like get her out of her funk, and they want her to like get back on that horse, like, and they're trying to figure out what she wants, because she's like, I can't date anyone that's younger. I don't even want a long-term thing. Like, I'm done with men. I'm done with men. My husband was horrible. He mooched off of me. He was lazy. He didn't do anything. I paid for everything, and he cheated on me. When they get to Vegas, this guy, he's part of the mafia, is there for his brother's bachelor party, and he overhears this, and he is like 5, 6, something. He's in his mid-40s, and you normally don't see heroes and heroines in their late 30s and early 40s, so that was just like really awesome. And he overhears them drunk talking about Aspen wanting a silver fox to just have a one-night stand with her, blindfold her, and just like take over and then never see him again. So he volunteers his services to her friends, and they set this all up. So they have this hot night in Vegas, and they even have a second night as well, and she never sees his face, even though she wants to. But he is hesitant because he's just like, we're both gonna go home. They don't know that they both live in Chicago. And he's just like, it's better to just leave it here. Whenever he goes back to Chicago, he needs like some zoning permits, and she works at that office. Aspen works at the office. So Maxine walks in and sees Aspen, and he knows who she is, and she hears his voice and she recognizes it. And so it's like, boom, worlds colliding. They can have a relationship. But the problem is, since Aspen is not part of the mob life, she struggles with certain aspects. His ex-girlfriend that he was basically fuck buddies with for like 10 years, his ex didn't want anything more than that. Even though he was willing to like marry her and everything, she didn't want anything. She's an issue. His unwillingness to divulge things going on definitely creates some conflicts and stuff. So I was frustrated a little bit with certain things that happen because I do expect my older characters to act a little bit more maturely. And there's a couple times where I felt like they both were just like, I was like, come on guys, just talk it out. Just talk it out. I was supposed to be more mature, and I expect that from you. It was so interesting. There's some cool things that are set up. Like I said, it's called Mafia Wars, and I can't wait to start the next book in the series. I did give this book 4.5 stars. Next, I read Ivan by Sophie Lark. This is her first book in her Underworld series, and there's a bit of a connection with her Kingmaker series as well, so I need to definitely read book 2 in the series before The Bully comes out later on this month. But Ivan is such a cool mafia romance. I enjoy this book immensely. It was 4.5 stars for me. Very instant attraction, but it worked. It just worked. The heroine, Sloane, is a hitman. Her father was ex-CIA, trained her from a very young age. I mean, it was definitely child abuse the way that he was training her at a very young age, but he was also paranoid from his time in the CIA, so he wasn't all there mentally. And Sloane is a tool that her father created, so she uses her skills and she is a hitman. She brokers her deals with this middleman who gives her her assignments, and then she gets paid big bucks. She's currently in St. Petersburg and she's finishing an assignment. She's posing as a stripper to get this guy to kill him. And right after she's done with this first assignment, she's planning to go somewhere else. She's planning to go somewhere warmer. She hates the cold in St. Petersburg, but then her broker contacts her saying like, you might want to check this one out. This has a $500K payout, and she's like, let me see who the target is. It's Ivan Petrov, and he's the head of a mafia family. She knows that this is going to be a difficult target. That's why that's so much money. But she does find some blueprints to his home, and she figures out that she can use these tunnels, these crypts, because he lives in this former monastery that he's converted to this like compound, and she can use these natural tunnels to get to him, and she plans on poisoning him. So she has to get very close up and personal in his bedroom, but of course he catches her, and then he captures her and puts her in the basement. And then he starts torturing her sexually. I volunteer to be tortured by Ivan Petrov. I'm just saying that wasn't punishment. That wasn't punishment, Ivan. I'd be punished by you. It was hot. It was steamy. It wasn't a very long book. It was like on the shorter novel length, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I'm very excited. It's like lighter. I'm very excited to read Snow, which is the second book in the series, and the one that's gonna tie into The Bully. So 4.5 stars for that one. Then I read Corrado by Bethany Chris, and this is the first time that I've read anything by Bethany Chris. And I saw that Tori from Novel Life, her channel will be linked down below. She recommended it in her Mafia Romance recommendations. And it's an MMF romance, but it's a duet. So you definitely have to read both books, and I've only read the first one so far, but I will give you my opinions on Corrado. As an MMF romance, it wasn't satisfying on its own because we basically only get the relationship between the two male leads and not the female lead. She's introduced pretty late in the game when they already have an established relationship. Corrado and Alessio have an established relationship. I read this book because it was an MMF, and I didn't get the MMF, I just got the MM. So Corrado basically sets up Alessio and Corrado's relationship. Corrado is the son of a mobster. His dad is like French and Italian, and he takes Corrado and his twin brother Chris to go to this place called the League. He's invested in this place and they train assassins, and Corrado decides that he wants to stay here and actually participate in the League's like initiation and do all that, and so he meets Alessio. And Corrado is struggling with his sexuality because he's bisexual. And it's a hard thing in the mafia to be anything other than hetero. And he and Alessio butt heads right from the beginning, but there's sexual tension, so much sexual tension. And the majority of the book really sets up like what happens in the League and how they got very close, and then we have a time jump 5 years later, and that's where the drama starts happening. I was very unsatisfied with Corrado's behavior. I struggled with his struggle because it really put a lot of stress on Alessio. I didn't think it was fair for Corrado to treat Alessio like that, take advantage, because Alessio didn't want to let Corrado go. If they couldn't be public with their relationship, he was going to take whatever Corrado was willing to give, and that's where the problems start coming in. A lot of what I talk about why I had issues with this book is spoilers. I do go into great detail in my vlog, my Mafia Romance vlog, so if you want to go watch that and check it out, I will, but I do plan on reading the second book, which is titled Alessio, because I gotta know what happens. I gotta know what happens. It's kind of a cliffhanger ending, and I just hope that Corrado does better in the second book. So I gave this book 3 stars because I was like, well, I gave it like 3.5 stars, but bumped it down to a 3. Anyway, the next book I read was Dark Mafia Prince by Anika Martin, and this was a book that I heard a lot about right whenever I joined BookTube. And there was just a lot that happened in this book. There was just lots of drama, lots of history with the characters. There was a prophecy. There was a search for a missing person. Like, it was just so much was happening. Alexio is on a revenge quest. His family used to be like the head mafia group. I forgot where they are. Where are they? I don't remember. Totally remember. I forgot the setting of this book, but they're Albanian and his family used to be the head until his parents were betrayed. And this guy who betrayed them and killed them, and who he's been on the run from since he was a small boy, and he and his brothers were split up, he is now the head of the crime family in that area, which I totally forgot about. He has a daughter named Mira, and Alexio was childhood friends with her, and they supposedly had a really good relationship. So when Alexio discovers his brother Victor, who was sent off to a Russian orphanage, which was horrible, they've only been in contact for the past year, but now they're going to take back what's theirs. But there's a prophecy about the three brothers reuniting and them taking on and like taking it all or whatever. But they don't have the third brother. They're still looking for Kiro. They have no idea what happened to him. They don't know where he is. And so they need to attack the compound and get Mira's father to give them a lead. So they do that. They take Mira hostage because they want information on Kiro. The father is like saying like he doesn't know anything or whatever. And they're like, fine, we're taking your daughter until you remember stuff. And they also take him prisoner to like be tortured and stuff. And Alexio and Mira kind of get really hot and heavy really fast. I was not Mira's biggest fan. I thought she was a little TSTL for being a mobster's daughter. She seemed like she held her father to such high esteem, and I totally understand children of like mobsters still seeing the good in their parents and stuff, but she was in absolute denial about how horrible her father was. He has this very big, brutal reputation. People are afraid of him. He has these cronies that work for him that look horrible. Like they eat children for breakfast, okay? And she just thinks her daddy's the greatest thing in the world, and he would never do anything bad, and he went legitimate like a couple years ago. I'm just like, you're a little bit naive and you're 28, and it was just too much for me. She kept saying the same thing over and over and over again because she wasn't really worried for her safety per se. Victor, I love Victor because it was so funny. Victor's like, let's chop off her finger. I say it's funny, but it's not, but it is. Let's chop off her finger, send it to her dad so that he knows we mean business and maybe he'll start talking. Alexio, of course, doesn't want this to happen because he's falling for Mira very quickly. Her excuse is like, if you show this to him, it's gonna kill him. He's gonna die. He has a weak heart. He's just gonna die if he knows that you hurt his baby girl. And I'm like, oh my God, your dad's not just gonna keel over and die. He's gonna be really pissed, and he's either gonna want to give up his information, or he's gonna think that harming you is not enough of an incentive to give up the information. Those are the two things that are gonna happen, Mira. He's not gonna keel over and die. And stop saying that. I was so aggravated with her saying that all the time. And like these people who have a vendetta against her dad care if he has a bad heart. They don't care about that. They don't care about that. They want him dead as soon as they get the information. So she aggravated me. There's a lot of convenient things going on. I can't say that I'm not interested in Victor and Kiro, but it's highly unlikely that I'll pick up the next books in the series for those brothers because I just really did not have a good time reading this book. So it would have to take something drastic to convince me to pick up the next book in the series. I gave this book 3 stars. Next, I read The Maddest Obsession by Danielle Laurie. This is the second book in her Maid Men series. I did not really enjoy The Sweetest Oblivion, which is the first book in the series. I had some issues with the heroine, but I think that Gianna and Christian, who are the main characters of The Maddest Obsession, they were just more interesting. Their dynamic was more interesting. They had some history, and Danielle Laurie says in the beginning they have a past, so there's going to be some flashback scenes, but she puts them all at the beginning, and that's what I like. I'd rather have that than multiple flashbacks cutting into the present day story throughout the entire book. I find that very annoying. So we get to see how Gianna and Christian met. Gianna was married to somebody who was like over 25 years older than her, and he betrayed her. He cheated on her with her best friend. We know from The Sweetest Oblivion that Gianna is currently married to some other old dude, and we see Christian and her interacting, and we see the sexual tension. And Gianna is a character where she has some past trauma, but she basically is like a walking middle finger to everybody. She wears like very revealing clothing, and she's a little bit uncouth, and she likes for everyone to believe that she doesn't care, and for the most part she doesn't, but she does. She is kind of drowning her pain, putting on a front so nobody sees how much she's hurting inside. She has a cocaine addiction. She uses drugs basically throughout the entire book, and she smokes cigarettes and stuff, and she has a traumatic past that's slowly revealed. And so does Christian. Christian is an FBI agent. We don't really know like how he has gotten involved with this Italian mafia group. How is he involved with Nico? He and Gianna have this relationship where they just kind of like pick at each other. They love sparring with each other. It almost gives them like a high. And it's like half sexual tension, half I'm annoyed with you. And Gianna considers Christian to be like her arch enemy, her nemesis or whatever. But of course, I felt like I really liked them as a couple, but Gianna was slow on the uptake because this guy is giving some pretty clear signals that, yeah, he's aggravated with what you're doing, how you're treating yourself, and he's obviously obsessed with you because he goes to great lengths to make sure nobody disrespects you. And it took her forever to be like, oh my God, wait, you don't hate me. You like me? I was like, yes, Gianna. Yes. And once these two are together, I just love them. Once they start opening up to each other, it was great. It was phenomenal. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I'm definitely picking up the next one in the series. Or 4.25, but yeah. Whew. Goodreads needs to update their rating system. And lastly, I read Filthy Hot by Serena Akeroyd. This is the mafia romance that is tied into that motorcycle romance that I talked about earlier, Link. And it's the 5th book in the series. We get to see Aiden Jr., who is the heir to the 5 Points mob. Aiden Sr., his father, is a little bit cuckoo. He's not stable at all. And in the first book, Filthy, Aiden gets injured after Fenn and Aoife's wedding. There was a drive-by and his kneecaps got shot up, and he's had surgery to replace them, but he's in pain. He got addicted to opioids, he started using heroin, and now he's detoxing. His heroine is someone who he had a run-in with 5 years ago. She's a journalist, and she was kind of researching the O'Donnell family because she's kind of had a mild obsession with mobsters. And Aiden Sr. sent Aiden Jr. to go take care of her. She's a problem, take care of her. And I love seeing their first meeting. It was like sparks were flying. It was so good. But he decides at the end of the night, like they go to dinner, even after he like threatens her. They go to dinner, they have a good time, and he realizes that this could be something. But then he's like, I can't drag her into my world. I can't drag her into my world. She would be unsafe, and this is not a life for her. So he just doesn't call her again, doesn't contact her. 5 years later, she is uncovering this secret like society called the New World Sparrows, and they're huge into human trafficking. Her friend was one of the people who were kidnapped and sold into sex slavery, and so she definitely has a vendetta against them. She wants to expose all the higher ups. They're in government, they're in all kinds of different areas, prominent positions of power, and she is revealing their names. So now all of a sudden she's in danger. She has hits put out on her, and of course this puts her back on Aiden's path. And so they are so good together. I love Savannah and Aiden. They're just so beautiful. They have such great chemistry together, and I just love how immediately when he is back with Savannah, when Savannah comes back into his life, he just feels so much lighter. He's been going through so much. He's been in so much pain, and Savannah just makes it all better. I love it. I love seeing the O'Donnells together. There was some heavy drama that was going on in the background. There was some crazy Christmas scenes happening, and it was a wild ride. I loved every bit of it. 5 stars for this book, and I can't wait for the next one, which is Filthy Secret, and that's Connor's romance, Connor and Lodestar. And then I think she's going to do a spinoff with some characters that were introduced here, and I can't wait. I can't wait. And that's the big reason why I'm still reading her MC series, because it's very much intertwined. I think that this has the heaviest amount of crossover, I would say. I'm trying to remember. There's still crossover in the previous books, but this definitely, I felt like would have been better off if I would have read all the MCs before I read this one, but it was still easy to understand. Like, you don't need to read the MCs to enjoy this series, but I want to, because I want to have all the information. All right, guys, that is all that I have for the first week in June. I'm really excited about all the Mafia romances that I've been reading, and there's still so many more on my list that I need to get to, so you'll still be seeing a lot of Mafia Romance. I have to take a little break though and read some historicals so that I don't get burnt out on Mafia Romance. Sometimes I'll get burnt out if I read like one specific subgenre of romance in a row, so I'm definitely gonna step away. Like, I don't feel burnout right now, but I don't want to get to that point where I'm just like not liking anything that I'm reading because I'm too involved with Mafia. I just try to create that balance, you know? If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified of any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with little HEA. Bye guys!